Yeah, go one more time for me.
Okay, it's basically just how are you going to fix metro schools? So it's an easy one.
Easy.
An educated workforce is very important for businesses to grow and thrive. Metro schools continue to struggle though. What specific actions will you take as mayor to address this concern?
Well, first and foremost, thank you guys so much, and Pt1 and BG for allowing me to come speak on Megan Derry's behalf. Obviously, she's at a city council meeting, like Stephen said. It's a commitment that she takes extremely seriously, but at the same time, she is sad that she couldn't personally be here to talk about these particular topics that she happens to be very passionate about. I think for the crowd, it'd be good for me to tell you a little bit about my background, how I know Megan, and why she chose me to come speak on her behalf. And then I'll address the question. Real quick, my parents were illegal immigrants from Mexico, and they immigrated here in the 1970s. They eventually became permanent residents and then citizens, but it was extremely hard. So I know firsthand how hard it is for these immigrant communities and families and what the hardships they face. I've spoken to Megan a lot of times about my particular situation, what my family went through. My mom and father raised my sister and I. My sister has a mental disability, so you can only imagine how hard it was to navigate not knowing the language and not having that government access. In regards to the question, I think that one of the things that we've always talked about is the tuition equality bill. The Tennessee legislature, that bill was passed by one vote. And Megan was extremely heartbroken about that particular situation, also because she knows someone personally that was affected by it, that if it would have passed, then she would have been able to go on and start, her college education. This particular student has an active member in her community. She's worked extremely hard, and it's very hard to see that happen. Now, Megan feels that if we make an investment in our education, starting from pre-K all the way to 12th grade, but then we don't allow them to go on and study and then come back and reinvest that education and stay here and raise their own family, then we're not doing our job. She's been a big proponent for any kind of progression of families being in the master's program with the mayor's office and New Americans. I think I got my time.
Thank you. Two things I should have noted. One is we have a gentleman in the front row who will be motioning to you when you have a minute left and when to stop. And just again, so that you guys understand. So now we'll have Charles Arbone and give a 1 minute response, and then Bill Free to give a 1 minute response, and then I'll give the next question. Charles Arbone will move on that way. Does that make sense now? Okay.
I think we're getting together for a while.
We'll figure it out.
So thank you for the opportunity to be here. Really echoing what Frank said. Obviously, we have issues training today's students for the workforce of tomorrow. What our statistics show is that by 2021 in this community, we'll have 34,000 more jobs than people to fill them, which obviously is a huge concern, but it's also an opportunity to get that right. I would argue that we've got several building blocks already in place, both with the academies program through the schools, with some of our STEM focus in charter schools and other places, as well as what they've enacted at the state level, what Governor Haslam has done to Drive to 55 and the Tennessee Promise, where now any child, back to what Frank said, not any child can go to college or at least a 2-year college. So I think it is a combination of both continuing to strengthen the public school aspect of this and connecting the education with the jobs to come, but also taking advantage of the fact that most students are going to need a 2-year or a 4-year degree, or at least something after high school. Obviously, the tuition and the quality bill is a major piece of that.
Thank you, Charles Robert. I think what I would tell you about education is that the mayor has a very limited scope of involvement. We have an elected school board. That's who makes many of the decisions, most of the decisions. But the one thing the mayor does do is to present a budget. And in that budget is what we spend on education. The mayor does control that and does drive that budgetary process. For every percent that we can raise the funding on education, it's a significant amount of money that could be spent on education, additional money. We raise it to 20, it could be $8 million. If we raise it 2 points, it would be 18, 3 points up to $27 million in additional spending for education. Now, education, the answer is not always more funding, but our surrounding counties are spending far more on education than we are. We're spending about 42 cents out of every dollar. Williamson County is spending about 62 cents. So I think that's part of the key.
Okay, this next question is for Charles Robert Bowen. Then we'll have Bill Freeman and David Fox respond to each. The current mayor created a task force to address the fact that city employees are not representative of the city's population. Please share your thoughts about the task force and how you will address diversity in metro government.
So certainly we appreciate the task force that came out of the great work that Tom Negri and the Human Rights Commission did. Although, as most of us know, the report that was done, while significant for those of us who've been paying close attention, the results of that report were not a surprise. We know we've got major work that needs to be done within the diversity of metro government, both with respect to the representation of African Americans as well as our foreign-born population. My commitment has been from day one that we would have a government, both a mayor's office and our departments and agencies that would look like and reflect the communities that they serve. Obviously, I'm a lawyer. We have a law firm here at Roman Foster Norton. I think our law firm is probably the most diverse professional services firm in this city, if not in the state of the Southeast. We got that way because of intentionality. And certainly the great work that Tom and others did pointed out that 44 of our 50 department heads are white, 63% of our workforce is male. So certainly we know there's a lot of work to be done, but the experience from my professional experiences would tell us that that only comes about as from intentionality. It's not a program, but it's a mindset, it's a way of life. It's not accepting resumes, but it's intentionally going out and recruiting across the community, recruiting those to come into the mayor's office, recruiting those to come into our various departments and agencies, including the Metro Police Department, to make sure that the workforce and to make sure that those government services that are serving you reflect the diversity of this community, and that certainly would be a major priority of mine going forward.
Bill Freeman, 1 minute.
Thank you. Tom, you did a terrific job on this study. My frustration, and I think many of our frustrations, is that the study was not released in a timely manner. We sat on it for months and months and months and months, and I don't think it was released in as timely a manner, Tom, as you would have wanted it to be released. We've got work to do. We can do a better job. Our police department in a recent class had north of 90% white males. We can do a better job having diversity in our city government, in the police department, the fire department, and all departments of the city. My company, too, reflects the diversity of Nashville, Tennessee. It's good business. It's the right thing to do. Our city can do a better job. Thank you.
David Fox.
Good evening, I'm David Fox. When you're spending taxpayer money, you have a real affirmative obligation, I think, to make sure that everyone has a chance to be employed by metro government and to do business. We have to talk about government contracting, but there's an affirmative responsibility there on the part of the government to make sure everybody has a fair shot at business. When I was chairman of the school board, one of the things we noticed is that we were not doing a sufficient job of making sure both minority representation and employment and contracting was sufficient. So we brought on a diversity consultant in our contracting, that's helped things quite a bit. So I look forward to monitoring the progress of the new diversity consultant who's been hired in employment and seeing how it goes. We can monitor it. There's a lot of transparency that will come about as a result of this study. So that's my next step. I want to monitor progress and see if we need to intervene with a little bit more muscle next time.
All right, we're getting there. Next question will be for Bill Freeman, who will have 2 minutes, and then David Fox and Howard Gentry will have a minute each. The unemployment rate for minorities and immigrants continues outpacing that of white Nashvillians. What specific job readiness programming will your administration implement to assist more minorities and immigrants attaining and keeping good-paying jobs?
Well, the unemployment rate is not equal across the board. It's also not equal in terms of male and female. And even where the employment rate does get a little closer, many times the higher paying jobs are not shared around the community with everyone. The reports that have shown us that graphically, that the higher paying jobs are more white males, and the women and minorities are in the lower paying jobs throughout the city. That's not the way that any of us would run our businesses. It's not the way that any of you would run the city. That's ingrained in the culture of our city and some of the departments of our city. We have to change that. I'll change that. We can do better than we're doing now.
Nashville's doing a great job of job creation right now. Where we're lacking is in the workforce development, which gets us back to the quality of our public education. There's no more dynamic tool, more powerful tool for workforce development or economic development than having improved public education. And that's obviously a front and center issue I would like to focus on, because the mayor plays a huge role in that. When I was chairman of the school board, I saw to get really good action from the elected school board, you need a very engaged mayor, which is something I would like to do. And secondly, Bill Haslam's Tennessee Reconnect. That's a very helpful tool for people who've been out of school. It's a way to have essentially free technical school paid for. So there are several different avenues we can follow there.
Howard Gentry, 1 minute.
Thank you. Yes, our public schools are important. Unfortunately, our public school students have parents who are not job ready. And that hurts those students because they do not have the environment to perform at the level they should. So what I'm going to do is focus also on the parents, on adults. We have programs such as OIC, programs such as Metro Action Commission. Now, I mention those two because one is private and one is public. And what we need to do is have more public-private relationships and partnerships. And as mayor, I'm going to bring these organizations together to partner with government, which is our responsibility. And we're not going to just look to train the children, but also look to train their parents. And if the parents get trained up, then the children will follow. Thank you.
All right, this next question will go to David Fox, about 2 minutes, then Howard Gentry and Jeffrey Kane will have a minute each. Transparency is a term we hear a lot in political campaigns. How will we be able to measure transparency in your administration?
The question's about transparency. My background is in business. I've been in business for 30 years. And while it's not a great thing, if you get a little unilateral, not real transparent, not as inclusive as you should be, you can sort of get away with it. It's how to make it up afterwards. But when I was on the school board, chairing the school system, I found that if we were not transparent, if we were not inclusive, things did not work too well. And I think we've seen, if we look at our mayors, various mayors over the last 15, 20 years, whenever a mayor has not been able to execute his agenda, it's been both a lack of inclusiveness and a lack of transparency. So since I want to be an effective mayor, then I'm going to be all about both transparency and inclusiveness. And just beyond that, sort of baked in my DNA. I was a journalist for a long time, have a lot of experience working with government agencies that did not seem to dig being transparent. So I have a real sensitivity to it. I've done a lot of FOIA searches, Freedom of Information Act searches. So I have a very strong emotional commitment to making sure that our government operates in a very clear and transparent fashion.
Howard Gentry, 1 minute.
Thank you. I think we've seen over the years when government has not been transparent. Normally when that happens, bills and initiatives don't move forward. They get stopped, and they get stopped basically because the people are not informed. And there might have been good initiatives, but the fact is, when people are not informed, they can't trust you. So the fact is that I will learn, hindsight is 20/20, so I have the opportunity to see it from that position. And I think if you just look at what's occurred with me over the last few weeks, you'll find out I'm very transparent, and I'm just going to keep being transparent in that manner so that there are no secrets involved in my administration, in my life. I'm going to be out in the community. I'm going to be touching each and every one of you. And so you're going to see me, you're going to feel me, you're going to be a part of my administration, and I'm going to be a part of this city. Thank you.
Jeremy Kane, 1 minute.
I think the number one word that you're looking for here in transparency is accountability. How are we going to be accountable, and how will I be accountable as your mayor? I think looking to the past, first, I was accountable because I knocked on every single parent's door when I recruited for Lead Academy and Lead Public Schools. That level of accountability starts in the house. As mayor, I've already started, as part of this campaign, hosting town halls. I'll continue to do that as mayor. I hear on and on when I come to meetings and with businesses, are you going to come back as mayor? And my answer is always yes, but the question is always interesting to me, wondering how other people are going to answer it. So I think those town halls, accountability, standing in front of you and taking your questions, explaining our decisions, and being open and transparent. The second piece is updating accountability, using Twitter and Facebook, Periscope, and other technology to be able to open up that data, look at what data we currently collect as a community, as a government, put it on our websites so that you can track it, whether it's contracting or procurement or meeting minutes or where my schedule will be during the day.
All right, this next question will be for Howard Gentry, then Jeremy Kane, and Art Robervic will have a minute each. This is going to require you to do something, and it might be difficult. Imagine that you are elected mayor. We are 90 days into your administration. Please describe the first 90 days in office and the specific actions your administration has taken to help grow minority and immigrant businesses.
All right. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is institute the Office of Social Equity. And that office is going to ensure that everything we do within the city, every development, every initiative, every plan, all progress is being looked at in a holistic way. And we're not going to allow decisions and initiatives that we make today in today's market to negatively affect people for years to come. And so there will be an assessment within Metro government of all entities of Metro government ensuring that there is fairness across this government, across this city. And where we find that it is not, we will be moving forward to fix it, to change it, to make it right. So that is one thing that is going to affect minorities on a big way, and also immigrants. The next thing is, I will recharge and reboot the poverty initiative here in Nashville, Tennessee. We started it a few years ago. We had public-private people in the room, over 100 people coming together monthly to work on job readiness, housing, and initiatives across the city that change people's lives. For some reason, it has been pushed down. For some reason, it has been changed. It will be changed again. And that will be the catalyst of us moving forward to be able to affect people's lives, not just the poor and the homeless, but people's lives across this city in a very positive way. So in those 90 days, you will see that difference, you will see that change, and that will be an engine that will start on the first day and will not stop until I'm no longer mayor. Thank you.
Jeremy Kane, 1 minute.
So I don't need 90 days. Day one, we would host a cabinet meeting, and I've said it at every debate, every town hall, and I'll say it to you again tonight. I would host a cabinet meeting day one as your mayor, and the head of NDHA does not work for me as mayor. The superintendent of schools does not work for me as mayor, and the head of Metro Transit Authority does not work for me as mayor. But we would sit around a table not only to set the tone, but to set the practice that we are one government, one city, solving all of our problems united and together. Two specific actions after day one is we would look at the contracting capacity of our minority businesses. We never actually looked at it to say, within our minority community, our minority business community, what capacity do we actually have? Third step would be looking at our procurement processes, is looking at and being transparent. Going back to that last question about being accountable, is who is getting city business? Who is subcontracting, and why are they subcontracting? And do we have the capacity within our minority community to give more contracts or to support more minority businesses?
Art Robervic, 1 minute, and we'll give you 15 extra seconds to tell us who you are, why you're here, and then this stay.
Thank you, Steve. Art Robervic, very happy to be married to Linda Robervic, as you all know, who's running for mayor. She could not be here tonight, and so she asked me to stand in for her. which is a dangerous thought. But let's start. 90 days. As you all have seen Linda, maybe on her commercials, she's not a patient person when things are not working right. Our education system, we have some very good schools in this town, but we have a number of schools that are not good enough. She will be very impatient until we fix every school we have in this community, particularly geared toward community schools. The next thing, she said within 120 days, so give us 3 more days, she'll deliver to you with her team, from her team, a transit plan that will start addressing the issues that some of us even had this afternoon as we came out 24. We have a great growing city, we have a great growing region. We need to be able to move around to keep quality of life. So the first 90 days, focus on education, focus on transit plan, and all of this is based on the smarter Nashville. We will use technology beginning very early in the process. Thank you.
Right now, I have a question for Jeremy Kane and then Art Rebeck and Frank Cardenas will have a minute each. Currently, the Office of New Americans is unfunded. Would you fund it, and what exactly do you believe the office should be charged with doing? Who should it focus on?
The short answer is yes, and the longer answer, my two answer, is I would work in it within the reformulated Office of Neighborhoods. When I look at Nashville's strengths, I see it in our neighborhoods. No two neighborhoods are alike, and that's part of what makes us such a unique and special place. We're one of the most compassionate cities with our nonprofits and our charitable giving, and we're also a place of faith and worship with over 700 different and diverse places of worship. So my focus would be under that new office of neighborhoods, nonprofits, and faith. That would be fully funded, and the focus of it would be on all of our communities and on strengthening those ties towards what makes us strong as a community. And why that would involve immigrant minority businesses is immigrants and new Americans live in our neighborhoods. They are our neighbors. They live down the street from us. They shop in our shopping malls. They go to school with us. They are also part of our nonprofit communities and give and are charitable and part of it. And they also worship beside us, whether in the same place of worship in the same pew or down the street within our neighborhood. So it would focus not only on immigrants and new Americans, but on our neighborhoods and where folks are calling home. Do we have affordable housing for all? Do we have transit for all? But it would also say government can't do everything. And where it can't, we need to reach out to our nonprofit community. We need to support our neighborhood associations. My wife is on the board of our neighborhood association, and we are just now coming back to the time where you can interact with other neighborhood associations throughout our community. And we look at it as places of faith. My father's a minister, and so much of what he did at his church was community-based and reaching out to different communities and pulling people together in diverse places, from starting a Room in the Inn program to starting basketball leagues after school. So I would do it through that office. It would have that focus, and it would be fully funded.
I'm going to take my one gimme as a rookie. Please repeat the question.
Currently, the Office of New Americans is unfunded. Would you fund it, and what exactly do you believe the office should be charged with doing, and who should it focus on?
Thank you. I wanted to make sure. This is a very important office. On my father's side, I'm a second generation New American. Linda's group came from Russia toward the end of the 1800s. And the Eskin family is well known in medicine, business, education across the board. This country has been built on New Americans. We need to make sure that there are nothing gets in the way of the folks as they come into the U.S., as they come in to buy, the early home buyers, as they become early business owners. We want to level the playing field. And it's not just for New Americans, but it's important in this city that we eliminate boundaries and eliminate anything getting in the way of that home, that business, or that good job. Thank you.
Frank Cardenas, 1 minute.
I think its answer would be absolutely. She's always been a long time advocate for making Nashville a more welcoming city. And one of the things that she always says when she's out in the community is that she is so proud that Nashville is a welcoming city. It's proven successful. Dayton, Ohio has done the same initiatives that we're doing with the Mayor's Office of New Americans, but they've been doing it for a little bit longer. They have a proven success from it. It's a reinvestment in our community, in our immigrant community, and if we invest in them, they're going to continue to invest. They're the largest growing community, and it's absolutely so important to continue that progress. Some of the initiatives with the Mayor's Office of New Americans that we've seen come from that, the pathway for New Americans, I can personally speak that I remember my mother staying up to the wee hours in the morning studying for her citizenship exam and being so nervous and fearful that she would miss something and not know what to study for that citizenship exam. But nowadays, being able to go to one of our 5 libraries that have this pathway for New Americans to get instruction on being able to get this citizenship test passed is amazing. Thank you.
All right, this next question will be for Art Beverbeck, and then Frank Harness and Charles Robert Bone will have a minute each. After your first year in office, what specific things will your administration be able to point to that shows your support for community organizations like Conexion, NICE, the Urban League, and the Urban League that cater to immigrants and minorities?
Excuse me. First year is very important, but let me come back to the fact that Linda and I had the opportunity to grow up in Nashville. We've had the opportunity to work here. We've also had the opportunity to be involved in the community at all levels. And I look around this audience today and I see Tom Avery back there, who's on the Human Relations Commission. Nonya and I met each other on the Human Relations Commission. So that's one example of where I've been involved. At the same time, in 2000, a number of us got together and formed something called the International Bridge. Matter of fact, Jimmy Webb, Partner Bill was on that, Farzine Ferdozi, Sue Court White, and a number of others. What we saw at the time was the growing number of new Americans in Nashville. Unfortunately, Metro Schools was not equipped. We did not have enough teachers who could help that student who had English as a second language. We worked on that. Unfortunately, the school backed us, and they continue to support that area. We never spend quite enough money there, but we have helped those folks along the way. So it takes people who understand the community. Linda does, I do, and it doesn't stop there. We've been, whether it's United Way, whether it's any organization that serves new Americans or serves those in the community, we put a lot of focus there. You'll see that from day one, but at the end of year one, we'll talk to you about where the weaknesses are and what we need to do to solve those. Thank you.
Frank Harness, we'll have 1 minute.
Thank you. Dr. Hull, in his piece in the Tennessean, outlined that when 30% of the students enrolled in Metro schools speak a language other than English at home, that's huge. We need to continue to reach out to these communities and see what their needs are. We need to expand on the current initiatives that we currently have now that are working, but then also invite the same community leaders back. They believe that if we continue the conversations, the same needs that they have today won't be the same needs they have tomorrow. And being able to open that communication up with these communities and continue that expansion on seeing what the needs are, how we can better help them and integrate them in our metro government will prove to be great for our city going into the future.
Charles Robert Bone, 1 minute for you.
When you consider that 12% of our population is now foreign-born, that 30% of our students speak a language other than English at home, obviously a lot of our growth as a city, but also our momentum and now our authenticity and brand is tied to our immigrant population and our foreign-born population. I'm convinced that in Nashville, we've got the world's greatest nonprofit community, many of whom are sponsors for this event here tonight, and many of whom were listed in Stephen's question. But when you think about the work that needs to be done, both from the education side, whether that's pre-K or whether that's job training, the work that needs to be done with families, the work that needs to be done with businesses, and increasing the percentage of money that's spent with immigrant and minority businesses. Obviously, Conexion, TURP, Urban League, and others that you named, and others that haven't been named, I think play a huge role in that. Our opportunity as a city going forward is to ensure that we're not only fully engaging them on the front end, but also making sure that we're partnering with them throughout that process.
Thank you. We're gonna move into a sort of lightning round here. I've got 3 more questions that we're gonna ask that everyone's gonna have a chance to respond to. They're much more complicated than can be responded to in 30 seconds, but that's all you're gonna have, so good luck. We will start over there and then just work our way down. And then maybe we'll go in reverse to try to be fair about it. Business owners like stability. Conversations about reporting the undocumented leads to potential instability. What will your administration do to enact specific policy in Nashville and influence policy at the state and national level regarding the treatment of the undocumented, and do you support creating a pathway to citizenship?
It's a very loaded question, but personally speaking, and I never didn't get a chance to talk to Megan regarding this question, but I know what it feels like. My father was legal and was working here in the country, and we always had that fear that what if something happened? What if, he was caught because he was illegal and working here? It's a constant fear they had for almost a decade. I think Megan would absolutely put things in place, initiatives, or even talking to community leaders or business owners to also understand what these immigrant communities are facing.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm certainly in favor of a pathway to citizenship. I think it's fair to assume that we're not going to get a lot of help at the state level for the foreseeable future. But I do think there's an opportunity with the city to continue to work with the federal government, which you've seen on some of the pathway programs. That I think that's an opportunity for the city to step up, both with regard to outreach and education, but also continue to try to make things as easy as possible in lieu of we'll see what happens at the federal level in the courts, but also as our work around the state.
This issue impacts children, children of illegal aliens that ought to have a better opportunity, a better pathway to education. Adjoining states have better programs to allow these kids to go to school and to get in-state tuition. We're not doing a good job of that. We need to do a better job. I agree that with the current makeup of the legislature, it may be difficult, but we need to work on that on day one.
With 12 or 13 million undocumented residents in the U.S., our country will find its way to the right spot. I'm very optimistic and believe our country is moving in the right direction now to have a pathway to citizenship. As mayor, I'll certainly will lead that effort. I think that's how we treat people in Nashville. We treat people civilly and kindly and respectfully. That's part of the Nashville way. That's part of the reason I'm the mayor.
Undocumented citizens are still citizens. They're still human beings.